I have the privilege of being president of Steel Sports and the privilege of speaking on behalf of Steel Sports here this morning. But I have to confess, Bill, when I got your email a couple of months ago and you suggested that each of us were going to give a talk focused on a best practice, a lesson learned, some disruptive technology or a new business model or process, I was intimidated. I mean, holy cow, I'm from Steel Sports, and on the surface, what do we do that's directly applicable to something that's happening in one of your manufacturing companies? And so I struggled with this, and and then think back, if you were at the December meetings, I had to stand up and present a bottom line that was in the red. So could I talk about some wonderful insight we have on profitability? Okay, that's out the window. So anyway, I'm struggling. What can I talk about? And about a week after I was supposed to submit my topic to Bill, I had some inspiration. And I said, wait a minute, there is something that we emphasize with our coaches, a couple of concepts that help them connect with their athletes in a meaningful way and help set them up for success in terms of not only the athletic achievement that they are able to lead, but also in the character development of their athletes. And it gets back to something that Warren said yesterday morning. He talked about, hey, you know what, in Steel Sports, our coaches have to be leaders, not managers. And so I want to talk about two of these concepts. And the first, the first is something that I was turned on to a couple of years ago, but I want to recognize that all of us in our positions are leaders already. Our skills are tapped into on a daily basis. And the fact that we're in the positions that we're in suggests that, we know something about leadership. But we're also all members of the Steel Partners family. And one of our family values is continuous improvement. And so I think each of us in our own way can be better as leaders, can be better at connecting with the people that we lead. And as Art Burns said yesterday, he said, hey, people are our only asset that appreciates in value. And so that's where I'm coming from, that with these two concepts, we can do better at connecting with our people. And this first concept is something that I had my eyes open to about 10 years ago when I was at a seminar, and the keynote speaker began his presentation by saying, you have to remember, programs don't make a difference in the lives of kids. Okay, so here I am. At the time, I'm executive director of the Ski and Snowboard Club in Aspen, Colorado. Our programs are reaching 2,300 kids a year, and I know, darn it, we're having a big impact on those kids. And so he's saying this, and time slows down, and I feel my neck bow a little bit, and I'm about to reject everything this guy has to say. And he finishes with, programs don't make a difference in the lives of kids. Relationships do. And I was like, holy cow. I mean, a blinding flash of the obvious. This is exactly what our coaches provide in the lives of the kids. They are another adult outside of the family who are invested in their success. And it's like bingo. So, but then you think about it, okay, relationships. So if I tell a coach, okay, you're going to have a better impact with your player if you have a better relationship with them. Or if I tell Peter Coyne or Lisa Alexander over here, hey, you know what, as leaders, if you have better relationships with the people you lead, you're gonna be more successful. I mean, that's a little bit nebulous. Okay, so how do I have a better relationship? Well, turns out there's an organization called the Search Institute, and for many decades now, they've been doing research on what are the things that characterize what they have come to call developmental relationships. And it comes down to 5 very tangible elements that you can get your head around. I mean, these things are concrete. We can do these things. And the first is to express care. You know, a couple of staff and I were recently at a conference on culture, and we were asked, okay, what were the attributes of the most influential leader in your life? And they've been asking this question of seminar participants for some years, and very high on that list is a leader who cares. And so within the context of our sports, we have a ritual that we go through where at the start of each practice, the coach will go up and shake hands and look in the eye of each of their player and say hello. And it's that brief check-in that gives them some indication of the mindset of the player that day. Is the player, struggling at home or in school? Or is the player, as is more typical, the player's excited to be here? But it lets the individual know that, hey, I'm important to you. And that's a real key, both in terms of developmental relationships, but also in terms of us as leaders. The second element is to challenge growth. And within the sport context, that's pretty simple, okay? Because we're out there, we're teaching skills, and we know our athletes are going to get better. We're teaching life lessons. Well, within the context of our business, it's also true. I mean, we need to set high expectations. If we set high expectations, most typically, our people respond. They live up to those expectations. And we hold people accountable. I mean, that's all part of challenging growth. In addition to that, the third element is to provide support. And in the context of our coaches and the players they're working with, I mean, that's helping them take their long-term goals and break them down into tangible steps that enable them to advance over time to that ultimate goal. Well, it's the same thing in our businesses. I mean, hey, we need to be connected enough with our people to where we know when they're struggling. And we can help provide the guidance they need at that time for them to get through the particular challenge that they're faced with. So if we're expressing care, we're challenging growth, we're providing support, the fourth element in the developmental relationship framework is to share power. And think about that. Again, within the context of our sports, it's pretty easy. It's something as simple as allowing players to choose an activity for part of a training session. It's allowing players to help set the norm for what behavioral guidelines are going to exist within a team. When I think of the times as I came through different organizations where power was shared with me, some of the most influential were the times when I was chosen to be part of a selection team. And it's like, holy cow, my opinion is going to matter. I'm going to help pick the next branch manager at a particular location. That was a big deal, and it was both inspirational and eye-opening in terms of enabling me to see a bigger picture of the organization. And then finally, the fifth element in this model is to expand possibilities. Okay, and again, in the sports context, it's pretty easy. It's helping an athlete see the steps that are going to be necessary for them to be competing at the next level. Or maybe it's to see how the lessons that they're learning in sport can be applied in their family, in their school, in their community. And so for us, when we think of expanding possibilities for the people that we lead, we're left with that same conundrum a bit in terms of, as Tom White talked yesterday, it's like, boy, do we train people and then they leave? And another way of thinking about that is, boy, let's train our people so that they can go anywhere, but then let's also treat them so well that they don't want to, that they want to stay with us. And so 5 very simple, very tangible elements to this developmental relationship framework that I think apply very directly to us as leaders. And now the second concept that I want to talk about is something called leadership defining moments. And General Richard Neal is a member of the Steel Partners Board. Well, one of his good friends is General George Flynn, Jr. And George, for some years, was the head of education and training for the U.S. Marine Corps. And George also wrote the foreword to Simon Sinek's book, Leaders Eat Last. Well, George came and was a keynote speaker for Steel Sports at a coach summit that we organized back in January. And we asked George to come and speak about coaches as leaders. And he turned us on to this concept of, hey, you know what? There are leadership defining moments. And so think back to Dave Ruppel this morning. He talked about getting that call from Matamoros. Hey, guess what, Dave? We're on strike. Talk about a leadership defining moment. I spent 17 years in various positions with the National Outdoor Leadership School. And we taught wilderness skills and leadership in expedition format courses that took place over a 2-week time frame up to a 3-month time frame. And you think of the outdoor activity and we were involved in it. Well, in my 17 years with the National Outdoor Leadership School, we had 4 fatalities on our courses. And you talk about a leadership defining moment. Holy cow. If you come through in good style in a leadership defining moment, boy, your image, your reputation as a leader is enhanced. And that's going to stay with you for a while. If you do okay in those moments, well, you know what? You're still a leader. Your reputation hasn't been enhanced, but it hasn't been diminished either. But if you drop the ball during one of those moments, I mean, come on, your image as a leader has been tarnished, and that tarnishing is going to stay with you for a while. But here's the thing with the leadership defining moments. They're not always the big dramatic situations that I just described. I mean, come on, think of Tom White's presentation yesterday. He referred to MOHIs, moments of high influence. We don't get to pick when our leadership defining moments are. The eyes are on us as leaders all of the time. It's every interaction that we have with one of our people. And so if a person is talking to me and boy, I get this little vibration over here on my right thigh and I pull out my phone to see what that is because I'm expecting that important message to come any minute now, what have I just said to that individual that I'm interacting with? Just told me, you know what? I've got more important things that I've got to be focused on. Hey, I'm a leader. I'm in an important position. When I used to have an office with a fixed landline, I used to set the phone up so that after 2 rings, it would roll over to my answering machine. Because I figured, hey, you know what? If I'm in the office, I can get to the phone in 2 rings. And if I'm there with an individual and having a conversation, I want to give them my undivided attention. And I don't want them distracted by my phone ringing. And I just want to, in my own head, hey, I know that's going to kick over here in 2 rings. No big deal. You have my attention. I mean, I was actually meeting with one of my regional managers a week ago, and he asked me, hey, I need some time with you to catch up, and we sit down, and his phone is there, and it's beeping, and each time it beeps, he's looking at it, and I finally said to him, I said, hey, Tom, I said, you've got my attention, I want yours. Turn that thing off. So again, these leadership-defining moments, these MOHIs, as Tom White referred to them yesterday, they're happening all the time. And so as leaders, we have to be vigilant about that. And we have to make sure that our actions at all times are consistent with the values that we have. So, you know, we challenge our coaches to think about how they want to be remembered by their athletes. You know, so are they going to be that coach who had a positive influence in the lives of our athletes, who just really helped them have a love for the sport? Or are they going to be the coach who turned them off, who yelled and screamed and, essentially made them quit? Well, what do we want our legacy as leaders to be? You know, how are people going to remember us? Well, I'm convinced that if we routinely express care, challenge growth, provide support, share power, and expand possibilities for the people we lead, we're going to be remembered with reverence. And Bill yesterday, he talked about the fact that, you know what, we're going to do these talks and presentations here in these 2 days, and this is really to whet your appetite. Yeah, but think about that. I mean, yeah, my appetite's going to be whet with the different presentations, but I've got so much coming at me that I have to eat that I'm not sure I'm going to get back to that little bit that whet my appetite yesterday. And so to some extent, when you think about the success of these couple of days here, it's based on what we do differently when we leave. And so here's a challenge for you, because this concept of developmental relationships and how it applies to us as leaders is something that you can begin working on right away. And so during a break today, after this afternoon, pick up that phone that you have and call someone who reports to you. If everyone who reports to you is in this room here with you, okay, call someone who reports to someone who reports to you. And just check in. Ask them how they're doing. Ask them about a particular project that they're working on. Ask them about something that's important to them. And listen. Thank you.